Hey, what is up? So I'm live streaming this. What the heck? Hey, tell me a story. Oops, story about a boy named Bobby who came to America. Generate. Oh no, I'll have to select a model. My bad. Augmental is the model we're going to be doing today, and I'll be asking it to tell me a story about a boy named Bobby who came to America. Boom. All right, and so I'm actually going to have it record a voice message for a second, so it'll take a little bit, and you won't be able to see the preview. So I'm just going to talk about the model for a second. Here it is, right here. It's called Augmental 13B. And according to the guy who made it, it's pretty good, which is always nice. So, where does he say that? He's just like, oh, right here. All right, so this is just more specifically on the guy who posted this Hugging Face page. So, there's another model called the Mythomax 13B, but this is like enhanced according to this guy. Oh, and you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to increase the number of parameters. So the initial story it's going to tell is only going to be 200 tokens.
Once upon a time in a small town in Ireland, there lived a young boy named Bobby. He was full of dreams and aspirations, hoping for better opportunities beyond his humble beginnings. One day, he decided it was time to embark on an adventure across the Atlantic Ocean to America. Bobby said goodbye to his family and friends, boarded a ship bound for New York City, and set sail into the vast unknown. The journey took several weeks of endless waves crashing against the hull and seagulls singing their melancholic songs on the deck. But Bobby didn't mind. He was excited to see what America had in store for him. When they finally docked, Bobby stepped onto American soil for the first time, his heart pounding with anticipation. He took a deep breath of the salty sea air and looked up at the towering skyscrapers that seemed to touch.
All right, so that's better than I could have done, and especially. Um, does so let's say so now it's established that he's kind of like that we're in like the 1900s ish. So let's get him into like a wage strike. Does he join the rest of the Irish? Is he a big drinker? And let's have him participate in wage issues related to unions and factory conditions. All right. So participate, but can do it. Oops, participate in wage issues. All right. Does he join? Okay. So obviously, if Bobby is an Irishman, he must drink a lot, and he also is poor, I presume. So he has to go work in the factory, but factory conditions back in the day were not too spectacular. So maybe this model will develop an inspirational story that'll be able to be told for generations. Or maybe not, but that's what we're here to find out. One thing that I do want to do is like maybe use this stuff if it gets good enough. You could use it to make movies, right? So obviously we got the Hollywood writer's strike, and there's a big kind of issue with the writers because they basically just got automated overnight by ChatGPT. and so they're still striking, and have been for a while. And basically, this AI is doing their job, right? Because I mean, Bobby's story is already better than a significant amount of what Hollywood creates. Because somehow, what Hollywood creates these days, whew.
Bobby made his way through the busy streets, marveling at the different cultures and languages that surrounded him. He found work quickly enough as an apprentice at a local carpentry shop, where he learned valuable skills while earning a decent living wage. Despite being far from home and alone in a new country, Bobby was determined to make a life for himself here. He worked hard every day, saving up money whenever possible so that one day he could bring his family over too. The carpenters were kind enough not to pressure him into drinking like many of their fellow Irishmen did. Instead, they saw how dedicated and skilled Bobby was in handling the tools, making them appreciate him even more. As for wage issues related to unions and factory conditions, since he worked at a small carpentry shop rather than an industrialized factory setting where unionization might have been more prevalent, these topics didn't directly affect his daily life or work environment as much. However, Bobby was aware of the struggles that many workers faced in America due to low wages and poor working conditions. It simply wasn't something he had experienced firsthand yet.
All right, that's kind of soft. I really wanted it to like get into some kind of actual story. All right, get into the plot of the story. Make something interesting. There has to be like a villain or something. Make it a long story. Please. All right. So obviously, the AI just completely copped out of the story that I wanted to tell. You know, Irishman comes over, and he, the AI is like, oh, no, he doesn't drink. It's like I was like, all right, I wanted to hear about his escapades as an Irishman who is working blue collar work, and it's like, oh no, he doesn't work like the other Irish guys. He doesn't drink, and he doesn't he just works in the he has a comfy NYC job, so he doesn't need to worry about the unions or the factory conditions. He's just making carpets. I mean, that would have been a good job back in the day. Imagine living that. That'd be actually a pretty good life, like living in New York City, 1900s, and you just walk like a guy who just made carpets all day could afford rent in New York City back in the day. It's pretty wild. All right, now you have to be a, a, a bankster or something, some kind of finance bro to be able to afford rent in New York City. Maybe I could get it to talk about some of the sights and sounds because I think the Statue of Liberty existed during Bobby's time. So maybe we could have him go to the Statue of Liberty and battle a dragon or something. Maybe that's something that we could do. We could try to get him to, at least visit the Statue of Liberty, or, maybe there's some kind of alternate fantasy setting here. And well, I mean, I thought this model might be more creative. It seems to be able to tell basically give descriptions.
As time went on, Bobby continued his apprenticeship while also sending money back home for his family. He became known as one of the best carpenters in town and began taking on side projects to earn extra income. His dream was finally becoming a reality. He could feel it within reach. One day, however, everything changed when Bobby received word that his father had fallen ill back home in Ireland. The news shook him to his core. How would he ever afford the cost of travel and medical bills from across the ocean? Desperate for answers, he sought out help from a local union representative who suggested joining their ranks so they could assist with expenses related to family emergencies like these. Bobby was hesitant at first. Unions had always been viewed negatively by his fellow Irishmen in America due to their supposed troublemaking nature and high dues. But the union representative assured him that it would be worth it for someone with such valuable skills as a carpenter. Reluctantly, Bobby Bobby agreed to attend one of their meetings where he met other skilled workers from various trades united under one banner, fighting against unfair wages and poor working conditions across industries. At first, the idea seemed too radical for Bobby's liking. After all, he had managed quite well without union involvement up until now. But as he listened to their stories of exploitation at the hands of greedy factory owners who cared more about profit than human lives, something inside him began stirring.
Alright, let me just go ahead and try to do the continue button. See what it comes up with. Because it can just continue telling the story. But I'd like to apologize for being a complete idiot earlier. And I just mentally heard carpentry shop and thought that he makes carpets. I really just wasn't paying attention. It's still morning. So, you know.
As time went on, Bobby continued his apprenticeship while
Okay, so I think this is working. And why did this one... Why was this one smaller than this one? It should be like... The AI should have a consistent size to it. Alright, but now... Seems like we're actually cooking something up here. Seems like it's going to be able to continue telling the story. So... We will learn about Bobby's adventures in America. Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. Go Bobby, go Bobby, go Bobby. Fight the oppressors. Go Union, go Union. It's taking its time. We could get a good story. Could get a compelling narrative. But overall, I think I might want to start. I might want to have it try to use the style of certain authors, like the way the descriptions work. Like, I'm trying to figure out exactly what this thing's style really is, because I feel like it's right now it's kind of writes as if it's like a story that you're reading, and you're taking a test in like 5th grade, and there's like a story, like I'm talking about reading literacy test, and you know, I feel like the story isn't like SAT level. It's like 5th grade exam difficulty level of story, where it's like, okay, I can imagine this simple stuff. This happens. This happens. Oh, how do you think Bobby felt about? Was Bobby? It'll like the question would be like, hey, how did Bobby initially feel about this? And like have 4 words. And I mean, I think this is working. Come on. Is it really taking this amount of time? My computer sounds like it's running. Sounds like it's doing some calculations. Come on, Bobby. it's continuing. Maybe it hit its context length. Oh, here we go. All right, so the story did continue, and we should be getting an output from 11 Labs pretty soon. So that's comfy. Go Bobby, go Bobby, go Bobby. Go Bobby. Join the union. Join the union. Go Bobby. Wow.
As time went on, Bobby continued his apprenticeship while also sending money back home for his family. He became known as one of the best carpenters in town and began taking on side projects to earn extra income. His dream was finally becoming a reality. He could feel it within reach. One day, however, everything changed when Bobby received word that his father had fallen ill back home in Ireland. The news shook him to his core. How would he ever afford the cost of travel and medical bills from across the ocean? Desperate for answers, he sought out help from a local union representative who suggested joining their ranks so they could assist with expenses related to family emergencies like audio controls SRC file/extensions. He listened to their stories of exploitation at the hands of greedy factory owners who family. Bobby overheard the employer talking about how much money they were saving by using cheaper materials and hiring unskilled labor rallies. Anything they could think of that might put pressure on their employers to workers from various trades united under one banner, fighting against unfair wages and poor working conditions. Everything changed when Bobby received word that his father had fallen ill back home in Ireland. The news shook him to his core. How would he ever afford the cost of travel and medical bills from across the ocean? Desperate for answers, he sought out help from a local union representative who suggested joining their ranks so they could assist with expenses related to family emergencies like these. Bobby was hesitant at first. Unions had always been viewed negatively by his fellow Irishmen in America due to their supposed troublemaking nature and high dues. But the union representative assured him that it would be worth it for someone with such valuable skills as a carpenter. Reluctantly, Bobby agreed to attend one of their meetings where he met other skilled workers from various trades united under one banner, fighting against unfair wages and poor working conditions across industries. At first, the idea seemed too radical for Bobby's liking. After all, he had managed quite well without union involvement up until now. But as he listened to their stories of exploitation at the hands of greedy factory owners who cared more about profit than human lives, something inside him began stirring. Anger, frustration, and a burning desire for justice that he couldn't ignore any longer. Determined not just to help himself but also others in his situation, Bobby joined the union and became an active member alongside other skilled workers from various trades: blacksmiths, tailors, shoemakers. The list went on. They organized strikes, boycotts, rallies. Anything they could think of that might put pressure on their employers to negotiate fair wages and better working conditions for everyone involved. As word spread about Bobby's involvement with the union, tensions began rising between him and some of his fellow carpenters, who saw it as a betrayal against their Irish heritage or simply didn't agree with its methods. But Bobby stood firm in his decision. He knew this was what needed to be done if they wanted real change in America. One day, while working on one of his side projects, renovating an old mansion for a wealthy family, Bobby overheard the employer talking about how much money they were saving by using cheaper materials and hiring unskilled labor instead of paying experienced craftsmen like him fair wages. The words echoed in his ears, fueling his anger and determination even more. That night, as he lay awake in bed thinking about everything that had happened so far, an idea began to form. He would strike back against this unfair system by doing something unexpected. He'd use their own tactics against them. The next day at work, Bobby continued his usual routine until lunchtime, when he made a bold move. Instead of going out for lunch like everyone else, he stayed behind in the shop. and began working on a secret project. As the other carpenters left one by one to grab their food or head home early due to exhaustion from overwork without proper breaks throughout the day, as was often common practice, Bobby worked tirelessly on his plan, creating fake union flyers that looked authentic enough to trick anyone into thinking they were legitimate. The following morning, just as the first rays of sunlight peeked through their window blinds, signaling another grueling day ahead for them all, Bobby handed out these union flyers among his fellow carpenters before disappearing into thin air without a trace. The chaos that ensued was exactly what he had hoped for. Panic spread quickly as everyone tried to figure out who could have done this, or if they should join the strike too. Many of them not realizing it was all part of Bobby's plan until much later on when he revealed himself from hiding. With their bosses caught off guard by this unexpected turn of events, and unable to find anyone willing to work under these conditions without proper compensation or breaks throughout the day, the entire project grounded to a halt, leaving everyone involved in financial ruin due to lost wages and damaged reputation among potential clients who might be wary about hiring them again after such controversy. In many ways, this was Bobby's greatest triumph yet. Not only did he successfully strike back against his employer, but also brought awareness to the plight of workers everywhere fighting for their rights in a system stacked against them. His actions would echo throughout history as one small step towards achieving fairness and equality in America, something that had once seemed like an impossible dream when Bobby first set foot on American soil all those years ago.
All right, so pretty dumb story all in all, considering it left everybody in financial ruin, including Bobby. There was no, it turns out that in the long run, the wages got better and the quality got better, and their business of the actual business improved because the quality of the labor improved, and more people were interested in supporting the Irish economy. And no, it's none of that. Like, this story is just like this kind of happens, and then I don't really understand exactly how these flyers work out. Like, he gives out a bunch of carpenters and then the strike starts immediately. Also, they have a lunch break and some of the people are leaving at lunchtime. So I really am skeptical about the conditions of the employees. And I think he said earlier that the conditions Bobby was in was pretty nice. So I think the idea is that Bobby just walks into like a random like factory, just starts handing out flyers, and then bails, and completely destroys the company, and all the people lose their jobs because the company goes down. So really, not a great story overall. This is why communism doesn't work right here. So I'm glad the AI was able to generate a story about why communism doesn't work. So I'm interested in further research and seeing how fantasy elements could be included. All right, so now we're like I feel like this is an untapped like setting for fiction is like 1900s like technology, but it's also fantasy. So if you ever played Dishonored, the video game series by Bethesda, it takes place in like the Industrial Revolution kind of thing, except there's magic, and so it's awesome. But that's kind of an untapped market, right? There's tons of fantasy that's like medieval, and there's some fantasy that's like modern day ish, like Harry Potter. But there is some kind of market for like just the Industrial Revolution. Such a cool time. Like, imagine like the American Civil War, but like fantasy. Like that's an untapped market, untapped storyline. So it's like, oh, like if you see that on Netflix, you're like, oh, I'll watch the first 15 minutes of that and see if I like it. You know. So this is why they're striking in Hollywood, is because this AI can just like, if you think of a concept, you can think of the script pretty quickly. And seems like we've generated our fantasy elements and Statue of Liberty story. So I think maybe I'm giving this AI too tough of a task of like trying to tell a story in a short amount of time.
As he watched the sunset over New York City, a smile tugged at his lips. It was almost as if Lady Liberty herself had smiled down upon him during this momentous day. From her perch on Liberty Island, she seemed to be looking out towards the horizon, towards a brighter future where dreams could become reality and hope would never fade away. Bobby knew that his journey wasn't over yet. There was still so much more work to be done if they wanted real change in America. But for now, he took solace in knowing that he had made a difference, even if it meant standing alone against those who once saw him as nothing but an outsider or troublemaker. As the moon rose above the city skyline, casting its soft glow onto the streets below, Bobby turned towards home feeling more alive than ever before, his heart full of passion for justice and determination to see this fight through until the end. After all, he was American now, not just in name, but also in spirit, ready to take on whatever challenges came his way, so long as it meant making a difference. Even if that meant standing up against those who once held power over him.
All right, I really wanted fantasy elements to be included in the story, so let me try to get it to. And it didn't really say anything about, like, it's just like, oh, yeah, Statue of Liberty is here, fan service. Yeah, and as it was almost as if Lady Liberty was, singing inside of Carnegie Hall near the Hive, uh, and like the energy was like the Hive, and then there was, you know, everyone gathered around like the Ferris wheel at Coney Island, and yeah, this is kind of corny, but let's see if it can do this paradigm shift where suddenly Bobby is now like working in a carpentry factory, but his boss is like an evil goblin, you know? Or like the evil goblins are the people they're unionizing against, right? But yeah, I am trying to fit a lot into a small amount of story. So maybe you need to go chapter by chapter on this, but it's just a bit more of like I feel like this AI is best at like descriptions of stuff. So I need to get it to do something in the style of a certain author. So I might do Neil Stevenson or something. And so now Bobby is getting his story told. Bobby, magic spells, magic spells. Steampunk. Let's go. It's generating pretty long generation here. Either that or I'm out of 11 labs credits. I don't think that's it though. I have a lot of those. Come on. Come on. Let's go. We need fantasy element. Let's why this is gonna be a long generation. I'm gonna make sure I'm not out of creds. Shoot. I don't wanna expose my API key. Hang on. Oof. Oof. Oh. Oop. No, I'm only at 11,000. I've done 10,000 today, though. Come on. Come on. This is going to be a long generation. Jeez. It sounds like my computer is still working, though. Come on, baby. Come on. Let's go. Here we go. All right. So we got our story. Now we're just waiting on the voice recording. So we're gonna get Bobby in a fantasy steampunk Union Industrial Revolution showdown versus goblins. Bobby, Bobby, Bobby. Let's go. Kind of wish it would show so I could read it. Like, if it's already. Oh, wow, here we go.
Bobby wandered down the cobblestone street, lost in thought about his next move, when suddenly he heard a rustling noise coming from an alleyway behind him. He turned to see what it was and saw 3 large goblins emerging from the shadows. They were dirty, their eyes gleaming with malice as they glared at Bobby. "What do you want?" asked Bobby, his heart pounding in his chest. The goblins laughed, their voices echoing off the brick walls surrounding them. One of them stepped forward, a wicked grin on its face. "We've been watching you," it said, its voice dripping with menace. "You think you're so special." "What do you want?" Bobby asked again, his grip tightening around the handle of his toolbox. He was no match for these creatures. He knew that much. But he also wasn't about to back down without a fight. The lead goblin chuckled, its eyes narrowing into slits. "We want what you have," it said, reaching out towards Bobby with long, bony fingers. "Your power." Bobby felt a shiver run down his spine. These creatures must have been watching him for some time if they knew about the magic he possessed. But before he could react any further, one of them lunged at him, its claws outstretched towards his chest. He dodged to the side just in time, feeling a gust of wind pass by where he had stood moments ago. He quickly reached into his toolbox, pulling out a wooden stake that he'd crafted earlier as a precaution against such creatures. With all his might, he swung. "Have," it said, reaching out towards Bobby with long, bony fingers. "Your power." Bobby felt a shiver run down his spine. These creatures must have been watching him for some time if they knew about the magic he possessed. But before he could react any further, one of them lunged at him, its claws outstretched towards his chest. He dodged to the side just in time, feeling a gust of wind pass by where he had stood moments ago. He quickly reached into his toolbox, pulling out a wooden stake that he'd crafted earlier as a precaution against such creatures. With all his might, he swung it at the nearest goblin, striking its heart dead center. The creature let out a high-pitched squeal before crumbling to dust. But there were still 2 more left, and they didn't seem too fazed by Bobby's attack. They lunged again, this time coming at him from different directions. Bobby ducked and weaved, trying his best to avoid their attacks while keeping an eye on them so he could strike when the opportunity presented itself. Suddenly, a loud roar filled the air, echoing off the surrounding buildings. A dragon appeared above them, its wings spread wide as it breathed fire down upon the goblins below. They screamed in terror before retreating back into the shadows from which they had emerged. Bobby turned to thank his savior, but found himself staring at an empty alleyway. The dragon was gone, leaving only a trail of smoke behind as proof that it had ever been there. Bobby stood there for several moments longer, wondering if what he'd just seen was real, or simply the result of too much stress and exhaustion from his recent endeavors. But then he remembered something. During one of his many trips to the library while researching about labor unions in America, he had stumbled upon an old book detailing various mythical creatures that were once believed to exist alongside humans. Could it be possible? With renewed determination coursing through him, Bobby continued on his way towards home, eager to find out more about the world around him and what secrets it held within its depths. For he knew now that there was more to this country than just its history of struggle. Magic, myth, and mystery lurked in every corner waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. And Bobby vowed to be that person no matter the cost.
Okay, so goblins just appear out of nowhere, and he's like, okay, but he doesn't start questioning his existence until the dragon pops out, and it's like, could the legends be true?
The train rumbled down the track, its wheels clanking against the iron rails as it pushed forward into the night. Inside, the air was thick with steam and the smell of burning coal, a testament to the old-fashioned technology that powered this locomotive through the bustling city streets below. Bobby leaned out from his seat in the crowded passenger car, watching as buildings and people blurred past him in a haze of smoke and motion. He couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder at the sight. It was like stepping back in time to an era when steam power ruled the world. As he made his way towards the exit, he felt the familiar hum of magic within him, a testament to the mark that had been branded onto his skin during his initiation into the secret society that governed so much of life here in New York City. The
Where
guards
did
at
that
the
come
station's
from?
entrance gave him a curious glance as they checked his papers, their eyes lingering on the glowing mark for just an extra second before nodding and waving him through. Outside, the air was cooler, the night sky clear of any clouds or smoke save for the occasional puff from one of the many smokestacks dotting the cityscape. Bobby took a deep breath, letting it fill his lungs as he made his way towards the nearest alleyway, eager to continue his quest for knowledge and understanding in this strange new world that seemed so foreign, yet somehow familiar all at once.
Okay, so it just kind of skipped over the part where he gets branded and joins the secret society. It seems to not really understand what steampunk is or who Neil Stevenson slash what his style is. So, there's definitely room for improvement in this AI. So, thank you for watching, and I'll be ending the stream.